When we take that and we put it into the earthy Saturnian sign that is Capricorn, it actually gives it more strength. Because what happens when you have these passions or these things that are activating you or these conscious desires, you just get one extra second to take a pause and kind of create some structure around that act that you're about to take.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another enlightening episode of the Astrology Hub podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Poole-Walsh, the founder of Astrology Hub. And today we're diving into a major astrological transit that we are in right now and we'll be navigating through February 13th. It's Mars moving through Capricorn, and I'm here with the wonderful astrologer and herbalist, Cameron Allen, for this deep dive. This episode is for you if you're interested in the shifts this transit could bring for you personally, and if you're interested in exploring collective themes we'll be navigating as Mars moves through Capricorn. It's also for you if you love ideas for working with astrological transits in a really tangible, embodied way. One of the things that I love most about Cameron's astrology is that he always has tips and tools and suggestions for how you can work with the astrological energies in a life-enhancing way. Finally, you'll want to stay until the end because Cameron is going to be going through how this astrological transit will be impacting all of the rising signs. So if you're curious about that for you, you'll want to stick around. I'm going to pass the mic over to Cameron here in just a minute, but before I do, I just want to mention that we will be at the Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles, February 9th through 12th. So if you're in the area, or looking for a fun road trip to take, this conference is going to be amazing, and we would love to meet you there. The Conscious Life Expo is a gathering that celebrates spiritual growth, wellness, and a deeper understanding of the cosmos. It's an opportunity to connect with like-minded individuals and be inspired by a diverse array of speakers and exhibits. Plus, some of your favorite Astrology Hub astrologers will be there. Rick Levine, Gemini Brett, Kaylin Castell, and the Leo King will be there speaking and DJing a dance party Friday and Saturday nights. I will also be speaking on Saturday. Astrology Hub has an exhibitor booth. We're planning a casual meet and greet for our community. It's going to be so much fun. So I've been looking forward to this event for months. I hope you'll come and immerse yourself in a very cool and expansive experience. Plus, give us the opportunity to meet you in person. Find out more at astrologyhub.com/consciouslife. And we'll also put that link in the show notes. Now, let's dive into our episode with Cameron. Cameron, welcome to the Astrology Hub podcast again I can't even count how many times you've been here at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. I'm glad to be here and happy to be here with everyone as always. And yeah, just want to echo what you said about the Conscious Life Expo. I actually spoke there last year and it wasn't a great time. It was a great time. So inviting everybody to come out there, it was really awesome. So
yes. Oh, good. I wish you were coming again, Cameron. Why aren't you coming? Too much?
Because I'm not speaking. But I'm thinking about it now that you said that, because I needed to come out to LA around February. So I'll consider now that y'all are going to be there.
We're going to be there. Yes, it's going to be so much. You have to come, Cameron. All right. So now another reason to come to the Conscious Life Expo is that Cameron might be there. He might make a cameo. That's right. Okay. So Cameron, let's talk about Mars in Capricorn. What's this all about? What are the big themes that we're navigating with this transit?
Yeah. So something lately that I've been focusing more on in my practice is just like when I'm talking about things to a larger audience, really focusing on like the individual invitations to people, because when we think about mundane and world astrology, it's so big, a lot of those things aren't going to be things that are within our power to shift and change necessarily. So just wanted to make that really clear before I got started, but I always like to break things down. And so just thinking of Mars as the planet of friction, the planet of action, the thing that allows us to like have, in evolutionary astrology, we call it the conscious desires. In ancient astrology, they would say it's the passions. And so I like these two ideas and concepts merged together because in old days, when they said passions, they didn't mean just like the things that make us feel passionate, but they would be like the passions, the things that make us behave in a way that's kind of unhinged, actually. And that's kind of exactly what we think about when we think about conscious desires in evolutionary astrology. It's not like I have a conscious desire, I'm going to do this thing. It's like an energic reaction where I'm just like conscious desire, conscious desire. In this moment, I'm just acting out in this instinctual manner. So when we take that and we put it into the earthy Saturnian sign that is Capricorn, it actually gives it more strength. Because what happens when you have these passions or these things that are activating you or these conscious desires, you just get one extra second to take a pause and kind of create some structure around that act that you're about to take. So really thinking about it in that way can be super, super helpful. Capricorn also is a sign that I strongly correspond to responsibility. And every time when I talk about responsibility, I always invite people into the perspective of the ability to respond. It's not like how many things can I carry on my shoulders in order to give myself these burdens. It's really about how can I have the ability to respond to things. And when we put Mars there, Mars is giving it more juice to go in a direction, to have the ability to respond and to be more adaptable rather than being carried away by the conscious desires and the passions that we have in our life. So that's one thing those are the things that I really would say, really inviting people to feel into that, how they've been doing with that. And then also acknowledging what I'm going to say about the rising signs too, so that they can apply that directly in those specific areas of their life. So that's what I would say Mars and Capricorn is like strongly feeling about to me.
Let me see if I got that right. So Mars is the energetic principle. It's kind of like it emboldens, it alivens, it kind of heats up our action and spurs us to move. Yes. And
Absolutely.
so when it's and this can be both in an impulsive way where we might do things that we might maybe regret, or it can really give us that drive to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. And when it's in Capricorn, you're saying that Capricorn gives it the structure and also maybe gives us that ability to pause and make a choice about how we want to use the energy versus maybe if it was in a different sign like Aries or something, that we might be even more likely to act rashly or maybe even out of character. It's some of the things that I heard you say. Is that
Exactly. It's
yeah?
it's exactly like that, right? I even think about it as like Capricorn's giving it a moment of slowdown with the Saturnian earthly energy. Because if I feel something that is a fear, if I don't have that, then I will act from that fear.
Mm,
But if I have that pause for a moment, I'm still experiencing that fear, right? We can even think about that from the perspective of Mars can sometimes bring some difficult issues. And also this is something I've been liking in my own process and in my journal. Like I've been talking about like how Mars can be considered unfortunate or malefic or whatever. And it's like, no, like when we had these like adrenal responses in our life, we can go straight towards fear or we can have a pause and choose to be courageous.
mm,
And so no matter which one we talk about, the higher octave being courageous, fear is always involved in courage.
yeah.
And so like that piece, that thread that like actually is some type of essence of truth that Mars does have this like kind of unfortunate quality to it. No one's like, oh, I can't wait till tomorrow. I just know so much fear is coming. Right. It's like as much as we want everything to like feel great, it's like, no, like these are things that happen in life. And we need to like learn how to have a relationship with them so that we can merge the both and of how that might feel a little sticky to say Mars has this thing going on about it, but also there's some truth there.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
that's the kind of how I'm feeling into it.
in your practice, do you associate Mars with both Aries and Scorpio? Like, do you consider that when you're interpreting Mars?
Yeah, when I interpret Mars, I'm looking at Aries, I'm looking at Scorpio, and then oftentimes lately, I also do look to Capricorn if there's something going on that I want to try to pull some extra resources since Mars is considered to be exalted there or to behave in a manner that is becoming of it, is the way I like to talk about it.
Yeah. I love bringing in the Scorpio aspect to Mars too, because I love thinking about Mars as both the warrior and the lover, like the capacity for both of those very dynamic and passionate elements of human beings. And just thinking of Mars as the warrior brings a whole coloring. Bringing in the lover brings a whole nother coloring, but then putting them together is like the capacity for both of those things. I just think it gives Mars so much more a more well-rounded dynamic.
Yeah, and it shows the range that Mars can have too. Sometimes we think of the Aries quality that is more like chitty chitty bang bang, like what's up? Like trying to like have at it right now. And the Scorpionic version of it is more precise and it's more measured, and it also is more protective as well because
Yes.
it's in the water. And so it's like it's about how I feel and I want to protect that. So oftentimes it's coming from a place that's very different than the Aries version of it.
Yes. Okay, brilliant. Are there any, like, I know you're going to go through all the rising signs and there will be probably some specific practices or things you'll give for each, or maybe not all of them, but some of them. Is there anything sort of globally that we can keep in mind when working with Mars and Capricorn energy? Like any embodiment practice or any herbs or anything that we can apply globally to this?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. The embodiment of it, I would say, is just working with like putting more heat towards your joints. Right. And so this could look a lot different. I don't know how much space I have. Anyway, we're about to get moving, y'all. Okay. So
How would you do this?
so when I think of this, I'm really just like, okay, where are my joints at? We can just start with the shoulders. And so if we just rotate our arms backwards and do that for like 30 seconds and then go the other way. Then I just apply direct action and heat towards my shoulder joints. And so the heat and the action is represented by Mars, and the joints in the musculoskeletal system is for Capricorn. For those that didn't know, I didn't want to go too fast. So there you go. Okay, anyway. So that was the shoulders. We moved the shoulders. And a lot of times people like to go to the hips next, but I like to go to the elbows and the wrists. And then we can even bring in our shoulders with that.
Mm.
And just really like doing this, like anybody, just open invitation, even pause this video in this present moment and just do this for 2.5 minutes one way, and then do it for 2.5 minutes the other way. Maybe you won't even make it there. And if you don't make it there, pause and leave me a comment because I want to like talk to you about it. So those are the first ones that I would do. So we got shoulders, we got elbows, we got wrists. Maybe you can even play with your fingers a bit there with the wrists. And then we will go towards the hips. And with the hips, you just give us the big hula hoop dance kind of motion going on there. And even sometimes while I do this, I'll start being more organic and just moving like this a little bit. So also just an invitation for people to make it organic and playful as possible. With the knees, I always like to come here, just circling the knees, maybe even massaging the knees. Maybe even while you're doing this, kind of focusing on your ankles to make sure the ankles are involved, go both directions. And then we can bring in the feet. Maybe do the ABCs. Oh, I got a little hole in my sock. Anyway, so do the ABCs with your toes and your feet, or you just do circles with them. Yeah, and that's what I would say globally from a medical astrology perspective, from an embodied holistic astrology perspective. I would say that is the jam. That's one of the things I'm be working with. I'm working with something else too, but we'll leave that for another time when I can give like long instructions.
Cameron, why do we do that? Like, what's that going to do for us if we like make a practice of doing that in the morning, for example? How will that benefit us?
Totally. So it's going to help globally with circulation because a lot of times, like let's say that I have some stagnation in my shoulder. Once I get that lubricated and moving, then the blood can move further down. And then I'm moving my elbows and the blood can move further down. Also, it's allowing for the blood to penetrate deeper into the joints, tendons, ligaments. Let's be honest, it's probably not going to go down to the ligaments and tendons, but that's like, anyway, we don't need to go there right now, but it's just allowing the blood flow more to get to the joints because a lot of times that's a place that can get really, really stagnant. And also since Mars is going to be in Capricorn, there is a potentiality that we could have a tendency towards more inflammation in the musculoskeletal system because Mars is there, one. Also in the beginning, Mars is going to have this sextile aspect to Saturn and Pisces. And Saturn in Pisces can create this stagnation, or this stuckness in the lymphatic system. So if we already kind of were having this little stuckness in the lymphatic system, and then Mars goes into Capricorn, then there's a potentiality, even a higher potentiality of this.
Wow. Very helpful. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start through the rising signs and just tell us for everyone, I'm sure you all know your rising sign. Just we're listening only for rising sign, right? Not for sun sign.
Only rising sign right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And everybody be mindful. Because it's easy to project in my mind whole sign houses. That's what I'm thinking in my mind. But just listen out for wherever, these things are in your chart. Even if you're Aries rising, and let's say Scorpio is not necessarily just the eighth house, but it's also the ninth house or something like that. Just be mindful. If you're not using whole sign houses, it's easy for my mind to organize it that way for a large audience. And so that's what we're using just for clarity.
Okay. Thank you for that. Picture this. You step into the new year not just with a list of resolutions, but with a pocket full of insights from the stars that help you make choices about timing, direction, and focus. Put together by an all-star cast of our best astrologers, our free 2024 Astrology Blueprint is more than predictions. It's your personal cosmic playbook for the whole year. Think of it as a chat with the universe, a way to catch those sparks of clarity that light up your journey. It's about syncing up with the stars and making the most of every moment. Consider it our holiday gift to you. And here's to a year of tapping into cosmic wisdom and personal power. Let's make 2024 a year to remember together. Get your free copy at astrologyhub.com/2024 guide.
So for Aries rising, we're going to have Mars in the 10th place. So the 10th house. So, from a natal perspective in general, from an external natal perspective, let's say, this is going to have to do with career and work, what we're doing out in the world. From an internal perspective, I like to think of this more as, how am I asserting myself based off of what I desire to do, what I want to do, instead of what the social norms are? Because sometimes in ancient times, they would say the 10th house represents reputation. Well, I think it represents reputation, yeah, but reputation is made based off of the construct and the social norms that we have agreed upon in the society that we live in. So the question is, are you ready to sever ties with that from an internal perspective? Also, the things from the 10th house could be being brought to the first house because Mars rules Aries, and that's your first house. And it potentially could be being brought to your 8th house because Scorpio is also co-ruled by Mars as well. So just thinking about work and career and your relationship with social norms and how that might be influencing you at the first house, and how that might be influencing either like your money being tied up with other people's money, or how that could be about going into engaging yourself about how you feel deeply about things that might seem taboo out in the world. Things that might seem taboo, 8th house, out in the world, 10th house. So just tying that all up there for you so that's clear. So that's what I would say for Aries rising in general. For Taurus rising, we're going to be looking to the 9th house. Mars will be in the 9th house. So the 9th house is having to do with religion, travel, all these things, yeah. Higher education, which also can include divination and astrology. However, one thing I like to bring in here is that our relationship with natural law is important in the 9th house. Because what is religion? Humans taking that which is natural law and trying to organize it in a specific fashion. And so just being mindful of that overall in general. So maybe you want to get outside more and just be in connection with nature. Listen to the religion of the trees, the religion of nature, the religion of the animals and the plants, and how they actually exist in the world before we put our little hands all over it. So that's what I would say there for the 9th house. This is also going to be connected to the 12th house, where Aries is at, and the 7th house, where Scorpio is at. And so the 7th house being Scorpio and the 12th house being Aries, Mars is going to be ruling those things. So how in relationships, 7th house, might you or other people be unconsciously projecting onto you, 12th house? Now, sometimes in the past, people would say the 12th house is about quote unquote hidden enemies. That's an interesting way to look at it from my uh, perspective that can apply. However, really, to be honest, when we ever say hidden enemies, oftentimes it's really just people who are unconsciously projecting onto us. And I think that's a real shift in in speaking or having clarity on like, okay, this person's unconsciously projecting on me. They're not necessarily my hidden enemy. Like that feels like really it feels more like a little more too aggressive for me because most of the time it's just somebody who's like a friend of me. They're actually a friend, but they're unconsciously projecting and they don't necessarily have this like deep ill will in the way that it might sound if we call it hidden enemy. So also, again, like I've been really feeling into like these old ways of saying things and like I'm like, what does this actually mean? Because if we can figure out what it actually means, we can kind of back off of those things feeling icky and sticky and we can have more clarity and then we can still apply when they apply and allow that spectrum to open up. So that's what I would say for Taurus rising. And so with that, the ninth house also from an evolutionary astrology perspective can represent our innate wisdom and intuition that comes through us. And that's how all the religions came. Someone got this like divine information that came through them and they followed it and they lived that truth. And so that divine information that's coming through you, how are you bringing that into your relationships? And how are you observing how you and or the other person is unconsciously projecting into those relationships? So that's for Taurus rising. For Gemini rising, we have Mars in the eighth house. And so with Mars in the eighth house, this, for me, automatically, I'm kind of feeling into the medical astrology part of this, especially because in the sixth house, we have Scorpio, which is also a house of health. And then we have the 11th house of Aries, which is not a house of health, but this 11th house is having to do with friends, groups, organizations, also how you might be desiring to step away from the social norms, right? So we talk about the 10th house being social norms. The 11th house is a step away from there, right? And so just thinking about how you want to take a step away from there. And if you're not taking a step away from there, in the eighth house is a place where sometimes we feel these fears and anxieties, and we have a tendency to emotionally abandon ourselves. And so how can that potentially be connecting to the sixth house and creating some type of illness or ailment or even just like physical distress where we feel guilty for wanting to move away from the social norms, but we're emotionally abandoning ourselves and it's making us ill in some very subtle kind of way, right? Not saying if you have Gemini rising, you're in your sick, there's like 5 to 10 more things we would need to look at to even try to start considering that. So just be mindful when I'm saying this. Yeah. So that's for Gemini rising. Also be mindful whatever's been going on in Pisces with Saturn there, that could also be really, really strong. So at the beginning of this transit, what I just said really, really applies. And then it kind of will loosen up or lighten up after that. So that's Gemini rising. With Cancer rising, we're going to have Mars and Capricorn in the 7th house having to do with relationships, partnerships. We're going to have Aries at the 10th place with work and career. And also, like I was saying, the social norms, reputation, things like that. And then we have the 5th house being Scorpio. So with this combination blend, the question here is, what's going on with my partner? Your partner actually is probably going to get like a supercharge. They're actually going to probably be doing really well there. But how is actually, I'm going to own right now, I'm projecting a little bit because my partner has this. And I'm also noticing what's about to happen in my life. Anyway, I just need to admit that because I feel like astrologers bring in their bias to astrology sometimes and they don't admit it. And I don't like it. So I'm going to keep it real. Anyway, so we have Mars in the 7th house. And the question is, how in your relationships is this going to be influencing or affecting your fun based off of your work and or your partner's work? Are they going to be working so much and you feel like you're kind of left out and you're not getting the deep emotional ooey gooiness that you really desire there? So for Cancer rising, that's what I would look at. And also if you are having a creative project, 5th house, with someone in partnership, 7th house, then it might be a good time to move forward with that with work, 10th house. And so that doesn't have to just be relational. It could also be business oriented, since the 5th house oftentimes does have to do with being on stage, which is like your creativity. Like, what is your play in life? What is your drama in life that you're bringing that everyone is watching you on stage doing. So for Leo rising, we're going to have Mars in the sixth house, which Mars in the sixth house is considered to be in his joy. So it's kind of comfortable there. So that's something to be mindful of. You might feel this sense of comfortability with working kind of extra hard right now. And so just because you're comfortable doesn't mean that it's subjectively positive for you. You're in your body. So just be mindful of that. And then also it's connecting to Scorpio being in the fourth house and then Aries being in the ninth house. And so this combination blend, when I was feeling into it, I actually like took a pause because I was like, okay, like what's going on here? And so what I would say is think about what necessary adjustments you might be needing to make in your life with Mars in the sixth house. And it might have something to do with your family or your home life. If you do rentals or properties, you might be needing to make adjustments with that. And then also how that connects to your higher truth, your beliefs. You know, like what is your quote unquote religion? What are your beliefs? And are you on a day-to-day basis actually working those things, or are they creating like this crisis for you? Because it might be influencing how you're working with your family, right? So that didn't feel super clean. So I'm going to go through that again. Ninth house being about your beliefs, the sixth house having to be about adjustments, and the fourth house having to do with your family. So how do your beliefs and your family meet? Like how, like, do you need to make adjustments to like work with those two things? Your family and your beliefs. Are they connecting, or are they creating stress in your life? So that's what I would look out for there with Leo rising. With Virgo rising, we have Mars in the fifth house. And then we have Scorpio in the third. And then we have Aries in the eighth. Now, this one felt super interesting to me for multiple reasons. And so I'm going to bring in something that is not often talked about. When I say often talked about, it's not really talked about at all. But from my perspective, the way I've worked with it, starting with the third house for me is about motor skills functioning. It's about like, how are you moving your body? It also, in traditional astrology, we say it's like kind of like the things you do on a daily basis. Like I go to work, I come back from work. Like the things you're doing in your neighborhood. It also could have to do with your siblings. But I'm emphasizing right now how to do with motor skills functioning. Because that Aries in the eighth house can create stagnation, fear, and also literal constipation, energetic constipation, whether that's emotions or actually in the physical body. So really my invitation is to bring in more of that fifth house energy. Because when we have a Virgo rising, the fifth house being Capricorn, oftentimes there can be a limitation on the ability to have fun. And so my invitation is to bring more motor skills functioning and dance and play into this transit so that you can make sure that things don't get stagnant in the eighth house. And there's a lot more that could go there, but that's just what I was feeling for Virgo rising at the time. So I'm going to choose to trust that. Let me know what you think, Virgo rising. Anyway, okay, so for Libra rising, we're going to have Mars in Capricorn in the fourth house. And then we're going to have Scorpio in the second house. And then we're going to have Aries in the seventh house. And so this has something like really, really big in it for me. Like I felt like a lot when I was feeling into this one specifically. And just like thinking about second house, what do I value? What do I really want? What are my essential needs? And how in my early childhood did I or did I not receive those things? And how is that playing out in relationships right now? Yeah. Fourth house, family. Second house, my values. Seventh house, relationships. Because also during this transit, even though I could have said this for Aries rising too, I didn't. So we'll keep going. During this transit, Mars will end up squaring the nodes. And since Mars is squaring the nodes, it'll bring in a story having to do with this Libra Aries axis, and just like, in what ways am I like moving forward and asserting myself in relationships? And how have I continued to go back towards this people-pleasing behavior based off of what happened to me in my early childhood environment in my home, which is where Mars is transiting in the fourth place. So Libra rising, if I was going to emphasize anyone in this, it would be you, dear one. So Stay tuned in for that. So for Scorpio rising, we're going to have Mars in the third house. We're going to have Scorpio, obviously, in the first house. And then we're going to have Aries in the sixth house. And so, again, the motor skills functioning with the third house is something that we're bringing, but also something about communication and making sure that you feel like you're communicating properly, because the first house and sixth house being together at the same time can create this issue with myself in the first house and feeling guilty for communicating things. And the guilt sometimes shows up in the sixth house. It shows up in the sixth house because it's right below the seventh house. So when I'm showing up, I'm feeling guilty because I'm putting myself below other people in the sixth house and I'm not third house communicating properly. So just be mindful of that and feel into that throughout this transit. For Sagittarius rising, we're going to have Mars going through the second house of finances. Also, again, about like, what do I value? What do I want? We're going to have Scorpio in the 12th house. Again, these unconscious projections. And then the fifth house, do I value? How am I working towards being creative and doing my play and being on stage? And how have I potentially been in the background being my own hidden enemy or unconsciously projecting that maybe I'm not good enough for this. I'm not good enough to be on stage. That for Sagittarius rising is what I would like sink into pretty deep there, especially because Jupiter just started going forward in the sixth house, which is also calling for some like other adjustments that we need to make as Sagittarius risings. And when I say we, I mean we, because it's me. So for Capricorn rising, we're going to have Mars moving through the first house. So Mars moving through the first house, the practice that I showed you earlier, really want to emphasize that for you Cap risings, because then Mars is moving through your first house. And then we'll have Scorpio in the 11th, and then we'll have Aries in the 4th. So really, I would emphasize the first house here, just because Mars is going through the first house, and really check in with, have I been working too hard towards my dreams, towards my hopes, towards my wishes, and not necessarily paying attention to my family or things that are deeper underneath the surface? Yeah, that's what I would focus on there. And also, what is the relationship that you have with the idea of belonging in general? Because the 4th house and the 11th house are houses of belonging. At home, I should belong. And when I'm with my friends in groups and organizations, I should belong. And when I say should, that's all made up, but that's an ideal that I'm projecting on you in this moment. So receive it, please. So, and then we have Aquarius rising. And with Aquarius rising, we're going to have Mars in the 12th house. We're going to have Scorpio in the 10th. And we're going to have Aries in the 3rd. So with this one having Mars in the 12th house, and then also ruling the 10th house, watch out for things going on at work for sure here. Like, I really would just be mindful if you're starting to feel like something's going on behind the scenes at work that doesn't feel good to you, like really check in with that. Yeah, I don't even know if like there's just like 1 or to 10 specific people who need to hear that, but just be mindful of what's going on at work. And also, yeah, like I'm also, okay. Also, if you need to get a reading to confirm if you need to like move away from work in some type of way, please do that. This is for somebody like specific. Even though this is broad, it's still for somebody there. So take heed to that and find an astrologer who can help you with that situation that you have going on, because it feels like really important. And I can feel it like moving through my whole body right now. So anyway, shout out to whoever I'm talking to right now. Okay. So then we have Pisces rising. And Mars is going to be going through the 11th, and it's going to connect to the 9th, and it's going to connect to the 2nd. Now with this here, you know, Pisces risings oftentimes have this like beautiful quality of being these dreamers. And I want you to not necessarily lean too far into that, but what I want you to do is find out in what ways you can assert yourself towards that religion kind of feeling from the perspective of being in touch with natural law. How does that connect to your higher hopes, wishes, and dreams? And how can you actually put effort towards the things that you actually value, that you actually want, and make it happen in your life. Because sometimes, with Pisces rising, the energy can be a little diffuse. So just really inviting you to bring in those three houses really strongly. What I value, how I intuitively feel things, and where I'm trying to go towards my hopes, dreams, and wishes. So those are the rising signs. And yeah, I'm feeling like really excited right now about like interacting with everyone in the comment section. Like, I don't know, I just keep feeling that and hearing that in my body. So yeah, I'm excited to see how everybody feels into that.
Amazing. So Cameron, I'm going to get selfish for a second here.
Feels
If someone was in Aquarius rising and the message that you gave doesn't apply to them, is there anything more global that might apply to all Aquarius risings?
Totally. Yeah. So, just going back to like the internal orientation that I was speaking to before, is just thinking about like what's going on with your relationship with the social norms. And have you had the ability to communicate yourself and not worry about other people's unconscious projections? So we get the 10th house having to do with social norms, third house having to do with communication, and then we have the 12th house having to do with other people's unconscious projections. And so just being mindful about your relationship with that experience and that process, because, really, to be quite honest, this could apply to a lot of people with all the things going on in the world right now. But specifically with Aquarius rising, that's what I would say from an internal perspective.
That's helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did all of our rising signs. And you gave us an embodiment practice globally that we can use. Are there any herbs that we can use to support or like, any herbal remedies, teas or
Yeah. The one that can, before I say this, talk to your licensed primary healthcare physician, because I'm not a doctor. And also always have discernment whether someone has doctor in front of their name or not, because it's your body and you should be taking responsibility for what's going on in there. So anyway, just had to say it before I go into this. But chaga mushroom actually came to me because before we were having this conversation, I was working at the herb shop and I was like really meditating on some of these things. And like chaga mushroom just kept coming up like over and over again. So chaga mushroom would be the one that I would invite everyone into, which is, I said chaga mushroom, but if I'm gonna be technical and be a herbalist serious, like not even a mushroom, it's actually just like a growth from a birch tree. It's not really a mushroom, but it's just amazing. It has so many antioxidant qualities. It has it just helps the body adapt to stress, helps with digestion. I've worked with a lot of people who have had let's call it autoimmune complications, whether they autoimmune or not. That was like a whole different thing. Anyway, not going to go there. But chaga, I just really, really love it. Also tastes really, really good to me. So
amazing.
Yeah,
okay.
Chaga mushroom would be the one that I would pick right now.
If Cameron has piqued your interest in medical astrology and in how you can bring astrology into your body, your health, your wellness, how you can use the astrology to inform how you support yourself physically, I highly recommend that you check out several different classes that we've done with Cameron. You can go to astrologyhub.com/academy. But Cameron, do you want to give them the list of classes that we've done together? I mean, I know we have Health Seekers of the
Zodiac, Health Secrets of the Planets.
Yes.
And is that it?
You might have a mastery class.
I don't know if the master classes, I don't know if the other master classes are out in the catalog, but those are the two that I know for sure are on the catalog there.
Yes. So those are great classes for any of you who are kind of inclined in that direction. It's like, wow, maybe you didn't even know astrology can help you with your health. Maybe you did, and you're looking for a resource. Those are two amazing classes to check out. Cameron, this has been super helpful. I feel very equipped to work productively and in life-enhancing ways with Mars and Capricorn. And really, the idea with doing a deep dive on these transits is, okay, we know what the astrological weather is going to be, at least from this perspective of Mars. So how do we use that information to make better choices? How do we use that information to be more aligned with who we are, to be more aligned on our path, to facilitate more understanding and awareness in our relationships with the people in our lives. I mean, we can use this information in really tangible ways. So, Cameron, thank you for giving us the insights and the energetic read. And now we get to choose what we do with that, right? We get to make our choices.
Yeah, and I would invite people to, like, with the rising sign that you heard that was yours, just write some things down. Not like maybe they're questions, maybe they're statements, and just use it as like a play in contemplation.
I like that. I have a whiteboard in my office that I use to write little snippets from the different podcast episodes we do, or the inner circle forecasts, or events. And it's really helpful to just have that visual of the guiding questions or the guiding themes, or the something that might have jumped out to you about what Cameron said, because you'll be surprised at how many times it's like, oh, I didn't really even know what that was about when it came up, but now I do. So I love that suggestion, Cameron. Thank you so much. Yeah.
It allows like the planetary influences to help us cultivate wisdom.
Yes.
So that next time around, we're like well equipped, when we're talking in astrology in a broad way, there's no way that everybody can be super concrete and land for everybody. So these contemplations just are a way to like be in connection with the spirits in the energies of the planets, and allow them to like actually guide us.
Yes, very true. Okay, Cameron, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
You're amazing.
Now, not only is Cameron an incredible astrologer and herbalist, but he is an amazing human being. I just adore Cameron. Thank you for doing the work that you do. Thank you for I love when you say things like, I was meditating on chaga mushrooms in the store. It's like, thank you for doing that, because we need someone doing that and catching those higher insights, even the insights that you shared about the 12th house. I was really appreciative of that. I have a ton of stuff in the 12th house. It never resonates with me the way it's presented. I'm always like, what? Like, I don't even know what to do with that. But what you said is it landed in an entirely different way. And it really is what's required in order for us to bring astrology into our lives in ways that are helpful today, is to have those personal contemplations and insights, and then bring those through and offer them. You never know who you're helping with that. So thank you for doing that, Cameron. And thanks all of you out there who are doing that. I know we have an incredible community of people who are doing that all the time. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for your interest in understanding natural law. Cameron talked a lot about natural law. Astrology is so much the understanding of how nature operates. And so thank you for being here and being curious and looking up to the sky with your feet firmly planted on the ground. I'm really grateful that you're out there listening. So thank you for that. Thank you for making astrology a part of your life. We'll look forward to catching you on the next episode. And Cameron, thanks again.
Yeah. Everybody stay beautiful, stay blessed.
Take care.